buddies? Welcome back to another ASMR video. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing 4 of my biggest fears. Some might even consider these fears to be phobias. I made a video in the past talking about my biggest fears, and now that I have so many more viewers, I thought I would do it again in case you haven't watched that video. And hopefully me and you share some of these in common so I don't look completely stupid. And if you do share any of these same fears with me, you can let me know in the comments below, and I would love to read them. So let's get started. So I have so many fears. I would probably even consider myself a scaredy cat. I just have so many fears and phobias. I'm calling these fears, but some of these are so extreme that they probably are considered a phobia. But I have so many, but in this video I'm just going to narrow it down to my top 4. And these are my worst fears, the ones I talk about the most, and I'm going to share them with you. So my first fear, this is my biggest, is I have a fear of heights. I'm terrified of heights. Now this is a very common phobia. A lot of people have a fear of heights. But I have it really bad. I'll give you a few examples. Like when I go to the fair in October, when it comes to town, I can't go on high rides like the Ferris wheel. I freak out. Usually when I ride the Ferris wheel, I'm always riding it with someone who is not afraid of heights, so they'll start shaking the carts and I will start freaking out. I will not ride the zipper. It is a ride, I don't know if it is a ride that a lot of people have or if it's just a local ride, but you can look it up on YouTube. Basically, it spins each little cart upside down, and anything that spins and goes way up, leave me out of it. I will ride rides that are pretty high up, just because they look fun, but I am still scared the whole time I'm on it. I've never rode in an airplane, not because of my fear of heights, but just because we've never had the opportunity to ride an airplane. But in the future, I do hope to ride an airplane, to kind of get over my fear. And that is, being afraid of heights is probably one of the fears I wish I didn't have, because there's so many things I could do if I didn't have a fear of heights. But most of my fears I wish, I'm glad I have, and I know it sounds bad, but I'll tell you why when we get there. But heights is one of those fears that I wish I didn't have, because there's so many things I could do if I didn't have it. I also found out recently that people can be afraid of heights as far as looking up at something very tall, and I did not realize I had this fear until I found out about it. I've always noticed when I was younger, looking up at tall trees kind of scared me. I've never seen tall buildings that much because where I live there's not really tall buildings, like city buildings, so that's never affected me. But even like watching movies and stuff, where they show the tall buildings in New York, I've always pictured me walking up the streets looking up and being like, oh my gosh, that's high up, like that is slightly creepy. But that's not the big issue. It's just really just going up very high. There's a local like miniature airport near my house where people can fly their private planes, and I can see the people in the plane sometimes over my house, and I've always pictured me being up there, and I just have an extreme fear of heights. I can even stand on a chair and be afraid I'm gonna fall. It's pretty bad. So my second biggest fear of all time is roaches. I'm not afraid of many bugs like spiders. The only type of spider I'm afraid of is tarantulas, or just big spiders in general. Baby spiders don't really bother me. If I see a baby spider on my bedroom wall, sometimes depending on the location of it, I'll leave it. It just doesn't bother me. But roaches is a whole different story. To me, roaches is the scariest living creature on this earth. I don't know what it is. I just have always, and I mean always, had a fear of roaches. I've never really gotten around many big spiders, so that's another reason that I usually don't include spiders in my fear. But I'm not afraid of beetles, even though beetles look very similar to spiders. I don't know what it is about roaches. Did I say spiders? I meant, even though beetles look very similar to roaches, I'm not afraid of beetles. I'll actually pick up dead beetles. Now live beetles, I don't really do them, but dead beetles, I'm okay with picking up. I'm okay with a lot of like creatures like lizards. I'm okay with the lizards. I'm okay with just a whole bunch of things. But roaches, no. And I'll tell you a little quick story. And this is not why I'm afraid of roaches necessarily. But when I was younger, I was about in 5th grade, I was sick, so I was staying home from school. And I'd spent the night in my grandmother's house, and so did my sister. And I was sleeping in my great-grandma's old bedroom because in my great-grandma's like last few years, she stayed with her mom, or her daughter, which was my grandma. And I was, laying in the bed, and my sister was getting ready for school. She was like in kindergarten, and I could hear the door. I'd always keep the door open, and I could hear my grandma helping her get ready for school. And so I was kind of awake, but trying to sleep, and all of a sudden I feel something fall on my head. And so my first instinct was to sit up and, like shake my head around. And then I'm like, what in the heck was that? And I'm like, oh, it probably was nothing. And then I look over to my right, and I see a roach staring at me on the pillow. And I'm not even joking. I ran out of the bedroom just thinking of a roach touching me. And like anytime there's a roach in my room, I'm leaving. My mom has to come kill it. Mom's afraid of them too, but she'll at least kill them. My fear's so bad I can't even get around them to kill them. I'm just afraid of roaches. Like there's I don't know if it's My Strange Addiction episodes or My Strange Obsession. There's some show and this girl like collects roaches, and like it shows inside the dollhouse a bunch of roaches. Another example is on the movie, if you've ever seen the movie, I'm trying to think of the name of it. What is the name of it? It's got the little boy and Problem Child. It's Problem Child number 2, and it's where he gets a bunch of roaches and tries to scare his soon-to-be stepmom, and then he puts the roaches in the salad, and it's, oh my god, I freak out every time I see that episode. But yeah, my second biggest fear is roaches. And I know this is not true, but every time I see one, I'm like, that roach is gonna kill me. You better come kill it. I'm fixing to die. I will panic. There was a roach by my door one time, and my door was locked, so nobody could come help me. So I was literally standing on my bed with my phone, with a bottle of Febreze, trying to I don't know. I couldn't leave my room because the roach was in front of my door. Nobody could come save me. My door was locked. I was freaking out. So yeah, my third biggest fear is throw up. Now this one comes along with a story, and this, let me back up for a second. Roaches, I wish my fear of roaches wasn't so extreme, but I'm glad I have a fear of roaches. Roaches are scary as heck, and I mean, yeah, so that's one of the ones that I kind of wish I have, just not to the extreme like I do have. Okay, moving on to throw up. I have an extreme fear of throw up. Now, I've looked up this fear online, like the name of the phobia, and the phobia that, like the definition of this phobia doesn't fit me. Basically, the definition of this phobia is having a fear of throwing up. That's not me. I don't have a fear of throwing up. And I may have told the story I'm fixing to tell in a minute already in the video, I don't know. But, I don't have a fear of throwing up. Like, obviously, anytime anybody feels sick, they get a little nervous. So I just get a little nervous because who likes throwing up, let's be honest. But I don't have a fear of myself throwing up, as much as someone else throwing up around me. And I have seen people like say, you know, they have fears of people throwing up around them because they're afraid they're gonna throw up too. Not me. I don't really get sick with them types of things. Now if they throw up on me, I'd probably throw up. But just the fact someone throwing up around me freaks me out. Now, the story I'm going to tell is I was in 6th grade. I was on the school bus and my friend Lindsay was sitting right beside me, and I think I did tell this story, but I'm going to tell it again. So, she was sitting by the window and she said her stomach was hurting. And usually when she said her stomach hurt, it was nothing, but something in my head that day told me, you need to switch spots. So back then I was so little that we could just kind of stand up without the bus driver noticing and switch. So we switched, and not even a minute after we switched spots, and she was on the aisle side of the seat, she starts throwing up in the aisleway. I start freaking out. I put my back against the window, put my feet, and start kicking her out of the seat. My friend Jasmine was in front, and her mom is the bus driver, or was the bus driver, but still currently is. And I was tapping Jasmine. I'm like, Jasmine, Lindsay's throwing up. And so she yells out, Mom, Lindsay just threw up. And then, like, I was so shooken up from that incident that ever since then, anyone throwing up near me, around me, pretending to throw up on me, near me, around me, I freak out. I even had another incident about 2-3 years ago where a guy on the bus was eating a jalapeno pepper, and after, you know, so hot, and he said he felt sick and he knew that I was afraid to throw up, so he was like, I'm fixing to throw up, Victoria. And I'm like, hold on, no you're not. And my eyes started like watering up. I felt like I was gonna cry. My heart was racing, beating out of my chest. Like, if you tell me you're gonna throw up and you're near me, I'll freak out. I had a baby throw up on me about 1.5 years ago, maybe even 2 years also. And my 2 friends was with me, and I started crying. I was crying. Even a baby, like, that's how bad my fear is. Like, just, I don't do throw up, okay? Don't do it. It stinks. Okay, don't do it. So, that fear, I'm glad I have. Just not to the extent, like, obviously when I have kids one day, they're gonna get sick. I'm gonna need to help them. And I'm afraid that, you know, like, also another thing is, like, when you're in a closed area like a school bus or a car and somebody says they feel sick, that's what scares me the most, because you can't go anywhere. You know, if I'm outside and somebody's like, I'm sick, I'm like, I'm running. But when you're in a closed space, you can't do that. So, that's another thing. And it's also like the suspense, I guess, of like waiting to see if they're gonna get sick just freaks me out. Like, no, I don't do it, okay? So my 4th biggest fear that I have is hospitals. I'm terrified of hospitals. I don't know what it is. Ever since I was younger, and not as like, okay, I have pictures of me in the hospital when Valerie was born. She was born when I was 5 going on 6, so I was in kindergarten, and basically, you know, I have pictures of me laying on the hospital bed with my mom and laying in the little cot, sleeping next to my dad with Valerie, and apparently back then, I was not afraid of hospitals, but as I've gotten older, I'm terrified of hospitals. Like, I think one thing that caused this fear was watching so many like videos on YouTube of cancer patients, like looking, what they have to go through at a hospital. Also watching people go through abandoned places, like abandoned hospitals on YouTube. That's creepy. It's just very creepy. I've seen somebody tour a abandoned cancer hospital, and then seeing the stuff in the same spot it was way back when just freaks me out. But in hospitals now, it just scares me. I've never actually been admitted into a hospital since I was a baby. I think when I was younger, I had to go to the hospital because I was very sick, and it was a weekend, so the doctor's offices were closed, and I was about 2 or 3, so I don't really remember. But ever since then, I have never been admitted as a patient in a hospital, and every time I say I'm afraid of a hospital, my mom brings up, like, one day you're gonna have to go to a hospital, and I'm like, no I'm not, which I know probably am, but I try to not think about it. And also, it makes me mad when she brings it up. She's like, one day you're gonna have to go to a hospital. And a lot of people just assume, I'm afraid of doctors' offices. I'm not afraid of doctors' offices at all. Like, I actually enjoy going to the doctor, as long as I know I'm not sick or nothing is wrong with me. My nose is running, But anyway, just like the sounds of like the equipment at hospitals. I've also watched a lot of hospital shows, like I forgot. It's some show on like TLC. It's like about emergency rooms. Like something sent me to the ER. Like I don't know. I've just seen way too many hospital shows, and they just freak me out. Like the sounds of like the heart monitors. Like what if the heart monitor flatlines? Like just thinking about the nasty stuff in the hospital. Just when I go to a hospital, I've been to the emergency room a few times in the past 3 years because my mom is she's anemic, and so she sometimes has to go get blood transfusions where she gets blood. So when you donate blood, if you're out there, I'm a big supporter of donating blood because my mom's anemic, and without people donating blood, she would not be alive. So, but personally me, I'm not afraid of needles. That's another thing. I'm not afraid of needles. I just try to stay away from them. So for now, I'm not going to donate blood. Also, my mom won't allow me to because she thinks I'm underweight. But anyways, so, yeah, so anyone who donates blood, that's a very good thing. So anyway, when my mom has to go get blood transfusions, I think that's the name of it, basically where she gets blood, I would always have to go to the hospital, or she had neck problems, and we had to go to the emergency room for that. I freak out. I don't like to touch anything, like hospital beds. Like, if you're someone I love, you're in the hospital, in a hospital bed, I won't touch you, I won't hug you. Plus, I don't like hugging people in general. I'm just not a touchy person, but I won't touch you. I won't touch hospital beds. They freak me out. Any hospital equipment, I will not touch. And also, in general, the hospitals, like, I know hospitals help people, but knowing that so many people died, like, what if I'm laying in a hospital bed that someone died in? That freaks me out more than anything because I'm terrified of dead people. Also, like, I know in hospitals they have like a room where they keep all the dead people. And my mom's a nurse. She's actually an LPN nurse, but she can't really do the nurse role anymore because medical issues. So when she was younger, she actually had to work at a hospital where she had to check on the dead people in the very bottom of the hospital. And she says the smell you'll never forget. She says it's so cold down there. That freaks me out. Just hospitals in general, like the equipment, the sounds, like all the ambulances scare me to death as well. I will not go into an ambulance. If I'm very, very sick, you better drive me to a hospital. because I don't want to have to experience like the hospital stuff before I even go to the hospital. Ambulances scare me, hospitals scare me. I don't know. That's one fear I wish I didn't have at all, just like heights. Life would be so much easier if I did not have a fear of hospitals. Also, if you like, this is not as bad as it was when I was like younger. If anybody I knew had just got out of a hospital, I would not touch them for at least 3 days. Like when I was younger, my mom actually had surgery, and she just got out of the hospital and I was laying on the couch, and she went over there and hugged me, and I was freaking out in my head. I'm like, oh my god, you just touched me. You came out of a hospital. I know it sounds so stupid, but I'm slightly crazy in the head. But now if you just come out of a hospital, depends what happened to you. If you just went because you broke an arm, okay, I'll touch you. But if you just had major surgery, I will not touch you. I'm just afraid, like also I'm afraid of having surgery. It just freaks me out knowing. I also watched Shane Dawson's video where he talked about like people being awake during surgeries and the doctors not knowing. That freaks me out. That, no, just no. So yeah, that is probably my 4 biggest fears. Do any of y'all relate? Let me know in the comments below. I don't know. Just heights and hospitals I wish I did not have, because life would be so much easier. Roaches, I wish my phobia wasn't so extreme, but I'm glad to be afraid of them, because in my head somewhere something's telling me that roach can kill me. That roach can kill me. And throw up, I just wish I wasn't afraid of that either, I guess, because life would be so much easier as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I will see you guys either in another video later on today, which probably not, or in a video tomorrow. I'll see you guys later.